starting with Susan Sanford. She's a wedding planner with Willrich Bridal.
Hi, I'm Susan, and as you can tell, I have a cold, so I've been told to keep this short and sweet, so it will be. I started Willrich Bridal about 6 years ago. I have been doing corporate events for about 20 years before that, so I've been in this business quite a while. And I'm going to share today with you some tips. Basically, to answer some of your questions first, yes, I have seen the movie The Wedding Planner, and yes, we do use the headsets like J-Lo. Look like the FBI, the whole team has them. Also, next question I always get asked is, have I ever had a bridezilla? Actually, we haven't had any real bridezillas. I've had a couple that might have come close, but I have a pretty ironclad contract that kind of nips that in the bud. We have had some momzillas, and the biggest problem is probably bridesmaids. I always tell brides, be very, very careful who you pick to be your bridesmaids, because they can cause a lot of problems. We've had one bridesmaid, for example, everybody wants to hear my bridezilla story, so we've had one bridesmaid who showed up and had never tried her dress on before she got there. Well, the dress was from a size 10 to a size 12, maybe 14 difference. And so it's about this much of it didn't fit, didn't come together in the back. Now, it just so happened that we had some material left over from another bridesmaid that we had fitted. And I had just happened to bring that piece of material with me that morning. So I have a seamstress that comes with us that stays with the girls while they're getting ready. So we ended up taking that bridesmaid's dress apart, adding a piece of material in it, laying her out on the table, and hand stitching her into the dress and sending her down the aisle. Now, that being said, I hope I never ever have to do that again. But that's probably my worst bridezilla story. People always ask us, is being a wedding planner like what you see on TV? No. No. There is very little glamorous about being a wedding planner. If you consider cleaning snake skins out of bathrooms, out of a barn, glamorous, or if you consider taking grandmamas to the bathroom, glamorous, or standing on your feet for 12 hours, glamorous, that's our glamorous part of the job. And if you do consider that glamorous, let me know, because I'm hiring and I need some people. Okay, I'm going to talk to you today about the bones of your wedding. What supports your wedding, what keeps it together. There's all the pretty stuff on the outside. I tell my brides, it's like building a car. Let's say you have someone, you're building a car and you get the prettiest paint job you can imagine on the outside. The best leather. Go to Europe and get tires. It's gorgeous, but if it doesn't have a motor, it's not going anywhere. Same thing with your wedding. If you don't have the bones under there, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to implode upon itself. So today we're going to talk about the bones. First of all, as soon as you get engaged, you ask, where do I start? I hear this all the time. You're going to start with a to-do list. You can find these to-do lists just about anywhere, in the Knot, online, in any wedding magazine. And they're important because there is a certain order that you want to do things in. If you have a planner, of course, she's going to tell you about this. And in my opinion, and probably Christine, first thing you need to do is hire a planner. But let's say, for the sake of today's talk, that you don't have a planner, okay? You're going to start with getting your to-do list together. First comes budget. How much money are you going to be able to spend? You can't do anything until you know how much budget you have, where it's coming from, who's paying for what. Don't go buy that wedding dress. As much as you get that ring and you want to run out first thing and buy that wedding dress, don't do it till you know how much money you're going to have. And with that being said, let's talk about what things actually cost, okay? There's a report that comes out every year. It's called the Wedding Report. And it breaks it down into cities, states, exactly what everything costs, the averages. In the Greenville area, the average dress costs $891. The average hair, $82. Average makeup, $65. Ceremony location, this is just the location, nothing else, $1,344. Minister, $186. Ceremony music, like your strings or your organist, $641. Music at the reception, your DJs average $691. Bridal bouquet, $157. Reception location, just the location, no food or anything else, $2,794. Reception bar and food, $5,945. Limo rentals, $502. Tables, chairs, linens, $1,994. And that's not everything that you're going to need. The average wedding for a little less than 200 people cost, let's see, $21,622. Okay? And this is a shocker. I know most people, when they start putting the money together, are just shocked at how much it costs. So let's talk about how you can save some of that money. Head count. Head count is a very important thing. Head count affects everything. That's what you're going to need to know next. Your head count affects the number of save the dates you send out, the number of invitations, the number of dinners you have to order, your bar cost, your tables, linens, and chairs to rent, number of centerpieces. So remember, each name you add to that list adds a whole lot of cost to that list. So control your head count. Then you're going to choose a venue. Head count also affects the venue. Don't get your heart set on a venue that won't fit your guest list. When deciding on venues, find out what's included. This is really important. Because you're going to go look at venues, and some include nothing. It's just the room. Some include tables, chairs, linens, even centerpieces for you. So compare apples to apples when you're looking. It may seem cheaper to use a certain spot, but if they don't include anything, when it comes right down to it, it's not going to be cheaper. Can you bring in your own caterer, or do they provide the caterer? You can sometimes save money by bringing in your own caterer. How about alcohol? Is it provided by the site, or can you bring in your own? If you can bring in your own, check your corkage fees. Sometimes corkage fees are so high that it's not worth it to bring in your own alcohol. Okay, after you've done all this, then you're going to get to your fun stuff. Your dress, your florals, your photographer, your cake, your video, your musicians, and your limo. What all these people do. Then, after you've done all that, you're going to do the most important thing. You're going to set up a timeline. Your timelines need to include 3 parts. Your rehearsal, your ceremony, and your ceremony and reception. Before the ceremony is ceremony and reception. Rehearsal, you're going to lay out everything before you ever go to rehearsal. You need to know where everyone is going to stand, who's going to walk who down the aisle, who's going to walk who back up the aisle. You need to have all that planned out before you even go to your rehearsal. If you have it planned, you should be able to do a rehearsal within an hour, in and out within an hour. Ceremony, you need to know times the vendors are going to be allowed into the ceremony and reception site on the wedding day. Times the vendors will be making delivery. There's a lot of vendors that you have to time their deliveries together. For example, cake and florist. The cake has to be there, the florist comes in, puts flowers on the cake person has to touch it back up. So you need those 2 people being there at the same time. If they're not there at the same time, you're going to have an angry cake person or an angry florist because they can't leave. They're standing around waiting. Times for hair and makeup. Don't forget to start this early. This is where most brides lose out and mess up their timeline. To fix a bride's hair, it usually takes at least an hour and a half. To fix bridesmaids' hair, you can count on a half hour for each bridesmaid. And then what time your photographer will be there, what time the parents and grandparents need to be there. Plan out your lineup for the ceremony, who'll sit where, and what order is the processional and the recessional. For the reception, you're going to need to know what time does it open for vendors to start setup. This is important. If you're looking at a venue and they're telling you you can only have an hour before your wedding, move on to another venue because it's just not enough time. Your florist is going to need time to set up. Your photographer needs time to set up. Your DJ needs time to set up. 1 hour is not going to give you enough time. You need to know what time your DJ is going to arrive. When does the cake arrive? When will the guests be arriving? Cocktail hour begins. What time are you planning on arriving after you've done your pictures after the wedding? What happens when you arrive? I've seen so many brides, they'll plan this great grand entrance. But once you walk in the door and everybody's applauded and they're just standing there looking, what happens next? You don't want this big dead space in your wedding, okay? Know what you're planning on doing next. We suggest first dance, formal greeting of the guest, and then a blessing. When will dinner be served? What time do toasts happen? And for Pete's sake, know who you want to do those toasts. And know what they're going to say beforehand. Make sure you review with their notes. When you're going to do the cake cutting, your bouquet toss, your garter toss, father-daughter dance. Party starts. You want to get all your things out of the way and then start your party. You don't want to have to keep stopping to do things once your party is really in swing. You have your last dance times, your bar closing, your getaway, clean up and tear down, and this takes a lot. Remember, if the event tells you you've got to be out by midnight, that means your vendors need to be out by midnight or close after. So you're going to have to end at least an hour before that, because your vendors have to have time to clean up, and that's when their real work begins, when it's over, and they're cleaning everything up. After you have all of this worked out, you're going to send your timeline to your vendors. And then you have to do the most important thing. If you don't have a planner, you need to have someone there that's going to have this timeline in their hand and be running this wedding for you. These are the questions that someone is going to have to answer that night, and you don't want it to be you. What makes a wedding enjoyable for both you and the guests is an effortless flow to your wedding. This is possible by making sure the bones of your wedding are there and supporting everything.